with us, James Ham, 1320 Kings Insider here and creator of the Kings Beat. Make sure you head over to thekingsbeat.com as we got the new merch store getting ready to launch, so you can rock the hoodie that James Ham is wearing right now, and you could become a paid subscriber to the Kings Beat as the third edition of Happy Hour is getting ready to take place just a couple of days from now, the 17th, and the first ever Happy Hour had me and KC. The second Happy Hour had Sam Amick, and the third Happy Hour, Jerry Reynolds, going to join the crew.
Off the record with the Kings Beat, the search for Jerry. I think that's what we're calling it. Virtual Happy Hour, the search for Jerry. I like to make the name as long as possible. It brings me joy to extend the name out even longer and longer. Yeah, but it's the search for Jerry. So I'm excited to have Jerry on, especially in that format where we can, sit back and relax, and Jerry can pop a beer and maybe curse a little bit on the air. I think
I was going to say, will Jerry have a drink or two?
Yeah, I told him. Yeah, I hope he will. Yeah, it should be a good time. Yeah.
Paid subscribers, kingsbeat.com. Go check that out. I can assure you, I've been on all of them, and they are well worth it. They are a lot of fun. And
stuff.
James really, I've known James for a while. I learned a lot from these happy hours. So it's good stuff and well worth it. And you'll find some things out that you didn't know. And it's fun stuff. Anything revealing about Monte McNair's press conference on Saturday? Anything that really stood out to you from that Saturday morning presser?
Yeah, I wrote on it just a little while ago, and to be honest with you, he was confident. I think the biggest thing is, it was kind of strange. They had us in the practice facility, so they had a stage set up with a table, and then all of our chairs down below, and then a big audio and video set up back behind. There was a bunch of audio issues. I think that was one specific issue that someone showed up late and then jacked everything up. I don't want to call a guy out, but it was not a good scene. He was 15 minutes into the press conference and then started doing some weird stuff that messed up all the audio, I think. But outside of that, I think the biggest thing for me was we walk in, we sit down, and there was one microphone. And that's huge. To me, at this point in the game, I think Monte McNair just made himself the singular focus of the Sacramento Kings front office. We can dispense with all the other who's doing what's happening here, what's happening there, who is that guy. Monte McNair sat on the seat and took all the questions and was the singular voice of the Sacramento Kings franchise. And I think that's huge for the Kings because that's been such a huge, tremendously large issue for the last couple of years. And I think this was Monte's trade, and I don't know how he pulled it off. I don't know how it came together at the last second. We read the Players Tribune, piece from Tyrese Halliburton, how he found out that morning, which I thought, first and foremost, the Kings did right by him. They talked to his agent, and then Monte McNair called him himself that morning and let him know before it broke. And so the players actually had already started texting with each other. So I think it was just a really good all-around feel that we got from the press conference. It's a guy who took a big gamble, but man, did he crush it. We can readdress this trade in a couple of years. But if he does the right things here, if he pieces together the right team, I fully expect Domantas Sabonis to sign an extension next summer, not this coming summer, but the one after that. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, I think all bets are off on how this trade works out. I think it helps the Kings now. I think it helps them 2 years from now, and it very well could help them for the next decade.
I want to go back to what you started off with a little bit about Monte being the singular voice. And to the best of your knowledge, has this always been the case, or is this something that kind of just, all right, they took the reins off and let him do what he wanted to do this trade deadline?
Yeah, it's always been too many cooks in the kitchen. Always. I mean, I think that's been the issue for the last, 8 to 10 years. Like it's too many cooks in the kitchen. So I like where they're at right now. I think I was worried coming into the trade deadline that this could be the swan song for Monty. That if he doesn't do something dramatic, that he's not going to get an opportunity to keep doing this and keep going. That they're going to have to find someone new. But I think with his moves, they were bold. The first move was like, oh my gosh. The second move was, how in the world did you get that from Marvin Bagley? And I think what he did is he bought himself the opportunity this summer to hire his own coach. And I don't know if that's going to be Alvin or if it will be someone else, but I think he really did get himself in a position where the final 20-something games of this season, they matter, but they don't. You know that he just did something dramatic that changes the direction of this franchise for the next 5 years or the next 2 years if you lose him. But for a while here, it really does set you up where you've changed everything. And now you got to keep building, but you changed everything. And so I think it's a good thing.
Did you get the sense, like he talked about being patient and waiting for the right deal to come along and all of that? Do you think there were multiple discussions, like serious discussions about Tyrese Halliburton, or was this a Sabonis entered the conversation with Indiana and that was the catalyst?
No, I think other teams had asked for Tyrese. I think that the Kings made it very clear all along that everyone was available, and I think people kept not listening when we said that, and they hoped to build around Tyrese and Fox, but at the end of the day, you got to a situation where a really, really good all-star level player is available. A 25-year-old all-star was available. So I think other teams like this whole notion that no one knew that Tyrese was obtainable. I just don't think. I think the Kings had a very small list of players that fit what they really want.
That's more what I meant. Like,
Yeah.
I understand teams can call and ask, but Monty being like, nah, it's cool. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
But then Indiana, then the conversations with Indiana get going, and that's like, okay, I'll talk to you about Tyrese while I wouldn't talk to Rob Pelinka about Tyrese Halliburton.
Rob Pelinka, get away from me, you. As in,
well, then, I mean, again, what does Rob Pelinka have to offer?
Well, right.
I mean, again, like
Taylor Horton Tucker and Russell.
Yeah,
Westbrook.
and I don't think, like, even if he came out with some crazy deal and started flashing AD, it's like, okay, how many good years does Anthony Davis have? I don't think any of us know that, right? I mean, he's been injured so many times, like just the long history of bumps and bruises. So I think it really does come down to, there's Ben Simmons. I don't think like the Utah Jazz was making Donovan Mitchell available. I think that, like how many 25-year-old, 24-year-old guys under contract that make sense for the Kings and that could potentially fit and change the direction of the franchise. And to be honest, I think it's a very short list. It's Sabonis and it's Simmons, and like maybe there's one or two out there that could have come available. Like I wouldn't, if this was a deal for Julius Randle, then you got me singing a completely different tune at this point. But the second you put Sabonis on the court, it's just like, holy cow, like this has potential to go somewhere.
Yeah. I want to go back again to something that you said as well, James, when you talked about Alvin Gentry and Monty finding a new coach. And I have been under the assumption and just kind of figuring that Monty's closing out the season. And when time comes in the offseason to pick a new coach, Monty's going to pick his guy. And I don't know, I don't think it's likely, but should it not be a foregone conclusion that Alvin is gone? Is there an alternate universe where Alvin does such a good job with this group that they decide to bring him back?
Well, look, I think Alvin Gentry is well liked. Like everybody likes him. Whether you love his play style or not might be something different. Like have we heard some grumblings behind the scenes that specific players don't like, that there aren't plays called, and that Alvin really isn't the guy who draws up stuff out of timeouts and stuff like that. I'm sure, there are some of that stuff going on, or there was leading up into the break, up to the trade deadline. But you also have to look at Alvin's team that he inherited, and what you can't do is like basically blow a tire in the first 20 games of the season and then just hand the car to someone else and say, sorry about the blown tire, you better keep driving. And that's where, you fire a head coach and it's a problem. And, like how do you move forward? And this team, up until days leading up to the deadline, they hadn't been able to move forward. It's the same 17 guys. Everyone else except for Alvin is the same. I mean, except for Alvin's position is the same. So I just think that you got to a position where, we have to see, we have to give Alvin at least a shot here. But that still doesn't mean that he's going to have the job this summer. We're going to have to, really evaluate. And it's very possible that Monty already has somebody that he likes. And I think he deserves at this point the opportunity to make that decision himself and not have, whether it's Alvin or whether it's Doug or whether it's someone else, like forced upon him. Like, let's do what's best for the basketball side. Let's not do what's best for someone, behind the scenes that wants something specific. And it should be his opportunity. Now, will he get that? I don't know, but I think he deserves that for sure.
And real quick, Damien, James, what was I can't remember, help me out here, the holding point when Luke was fired? Didn't Alvin want another year on his contract? What happened there again?
No, Alvin wanted a full 3-year deal to take over the team. So
he got that though, didn't he?
No,
He
Alvin's
didn't.
interim head
Okay.
coach. No.
Gotcha.
He wanted a full 3-year deal, and that just didn't happen. There are things that like incentives built into his interim tag that could equate to him getting the job next season. But we're pretty far down the road for that to happen. I mean, again, for the Kings, I don't even know where they're at. What are they, 22-36 right now? They're 14 games under 500. Like, in order to get back, it's virtually impossible for them to get back to 500. There's no way, I don't think, to get back even remotely close. But, if he does not only make the play-in or somehow he gets his team into the playoffs, then you have to consider it for sure. And, I saw someone in the chatty house say something about his age. Like, look, Alvin Gentry's got plenty of basketball left in him. He is, I think he's 66 or 67. But, Pop is still coaching. He's in his 70s. So I think that they're, I don't want to get into ageism here when it comes to head coaches. I think a lot of head coaches in the league can keep going and going and going. I mean, once you get like the basics down, you surround yourself with good assistants and all that stuff, he could coach for another few years without any question.
That is Michael Scott, a.k.a. James Ham, right there with the ageism reference when talking about Alvin Gentry. Good stuff. Good stuff, James. You mean old people have as many rights as young people? Yes, Michael. Yes, they do.
Yes, they
do. Do you think we saw Dante DiVincenzo debut on Saturday? You think Josh Jackson, Trey Lyles, you think those guys get some run, or is there just not really room for them?
I think if you get a couple of practices in, you might see one or two more guys play. Like, you're not going to be able to play Dante DiVincenzo, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, and just keep going. I mean, you can't go 6 deep into that trade. So, I mean, if there's a blowout one way or another, I think we're going to see Josh Jackson. Chimezie Metu has earned the right to at least see some minutes, especially the way he played early on. But Lyles is a little bit different player, and the Kings might want to see what he can do as far as like a true floor spacer, because he is a good shooter, and he's a pretty solid rebounder. He's just an interesting player, but again, a player archetype that you might want to go chase down the road, so you want to see how it looks. But overall, I don't think we're going to see every single one of these players. I think the primary clearly is Sabonis, but I think that's one. And then two is probably Dante DiVincenzo with 2A being Justin Holiday. Those are the like 3 that you're going to see primarily out of this group, in my opinion. That doesn't mean that Jeremy Lamb can't play, but I kind of feel like if you really get how deep is Alvin going to go? Is he going to go to a 10 or an 11-man rotation? And the answer is probably not. So I think we're going to see some things happen.
Oh,
Sorry.
boy, it is going down at the Ham household right now.
That's right.
Oh, listen to those feet hit the floor. It's going down at the Ham house. Watch out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, like, look, you can't go too deep, but I think Dante DiVincenzo is a guy that you need to circle, and I think there's going to be a point where he's in the starting lineup. I think initially what you're trying to do is you're trying to make Sabonis as comfortable as you can possibly make him. My guy, Brendan Nunez, said on the podcast after the trade that 24% of Domantas Sabonis' assists went to Justin Holiday, which is absolutely crazy. So if you're going to leave that guy out there to make him feel comfortable, that makes sense to me because he's good defensively, he's long, he's active, he does all that stuff. But I think the real guy that you need to circle is Dante DiVincenzo. And just keep in mind that he's a restricted free agent after the season, and he really hasn't had a great run over the last, year plus because of the injury. And so what you're doing is you have the opportunity to limit some of his value on the open market. He's a guy who's never averaged like 15 points a game. He has done it in small stretches, but you really do have an opportunity to try to get him right, number one. Number two, try to blend him in with Fox. But number three, limit his value going forward. And I think he's going to be one of those diamond in the rough guys that you could see him paired next to Fox for the next, 4 or 5 years. He really is. He's super athletic, super long. If he hits his three-point shot, it really does help. But his basketball IQ is off the charts. He closes out so well on shooters. It's crazy. And he can pass. Some people were asking for like a third point guard. This team doesn't need a third point guard. You got Fox, you got Davion, you got DiVincenzo, but you also have Sabonis, which they're going to run the offense through for huge stretches.
What did you think about Dante's, debut on Saturday? The stats weren't overly impressive, but I just really like what he brought to the table. He was always, it's funny, I felt like whether it was after a made bucket or him trying to get a steal in the backcourt, he was always like sprinting from one end of the floor to the next. And he just did that all game long. And I liked his energy. I like what he brought. I know we talked about, and you just talked about him possibly starting, but in the meantime, him and Davion being the backcourt coming off the bench, I mean, that could be a problem for a lot of other teams' bench guards. What did you see from Davion on Saturday night?
Yeah, from Davion or from
Dante?
Yeah.
My bad.
Again, I think he's a tryhard, which, the Kings didn't have any. They don't have that guy, the guy who's running and diving and flying into the stands and doing all those little things that make a team exciting and really what those guys do. They're catalyst players. They pull everyone together, right? So they don't have to be vocal pulling everyone together. They do it by their hustle and their energy and what they're doing. I think sometimes you're like, okay, that was a little crazy. What were you doing there? But I also will say this. He looked almost identical to what we saw from Justin Holiday in game one, right? He goes out there and he misses all of his shots. When Dante DiVincenzo is hitting his shots, he doesn't look like that. So if he would hit 2 more shots, everyone would have been like, oh my gosh, like, look what we got. And I think it's just a matter of him being anxious, being nervous, you're trying to make a good first impression. I think all these guys do that. They step on the court, they try to make a good impression. Where I'll say, like Jeremy Lamb has played for a bunch of teams. He's used to this. This is like old news. I step in, this is what I do. So I think some of these guys try to make a big first impression, and that comes across just the wrong way. It's forced and stuff like that. I think there was a point where DiVincenzo, he took like 3 threes in the span of like 8 seconds. Like he kept missing. One rebound came right back to him. He missed again. Came to somebody else. They found him again. He shot it again. It was like, stop shooting, man. Or maybe don't. Maybe don't. Maybe shoot your way into it.
Thank God we're used to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank God we're used to that type of behavior in that position.
What are you talking about? Did you see that Buddy Hield first game? It almost got a triple double. Wait, game 2. Wait, you lived by him and you died by him. Hey,
There it
look at that.
is.
Look at
There it
that.
is. Someone the Kings are living by right now. I know, everyone loves Sabonis and the Sabonis Fox pairing. James Harrison Barnes is playing ball as good, better than he's played all year, including his incredible start to the season. Is this just a byproduct of Sabonis? Is this a byproduct of what he has to do defensively? Is this just more balance on the floor? He looks like a complete, and he's getting to the foul line at a rate that he hasn't. I don't know that he ever has.
Yeah, and hitting. I mean, he had a stretch where he started missing free throws and was like, oh, this is weird. And then he woke up out of that, and then I think he hit 25 straight and then missed one the other night. Yeah, I think what you're seeing is that high basketball IQ players, when you put them with other high basketball IQ players, they look like high basketball IQ players again. And I think that this team has had, for a couple of years, a bunch of low basketball IQ players, like a handful of them on the court. Not all of the players are low basketball IQ players, but you had a lot of them. And not only that, but the high basketball IQ players you did have, they either didn't play that much or they didn't have the ball in their hands that much. I think the one guy that we can separate from that mix is Tyrese Halliburton, who not only had a high basketball IQ, but also started to get the ball more and more. But we started seeing Harrison Barnes start to carry this team, even if they were losing. He started carrying this team during Fox's injury, the mystical sore ankle. And so we started to see him start plugging away. And I really do believe that we missed how bad the foot injury hurt him early on. I think he came back too early. I think he struggled with it. I don't think he was 100% the whole time. I think by the time you got him 100%, the Kings were just so bad that you weren't really even noticing that he was 100% and doing good things. But I know, like, we started to see him put up high, mid to high 20s during that stretch where Fox was out. And so, look, he's a perfect fit. You just need more. You need more of those guys. You need one or two more guys like that, and then you need a guy like DiVincenzo to really develop into the guy that you need alongside Fox to be able to handle the tough cover and to be that long defender and smart basketball player and a guy who can run off of all the the motion that they're doing now.
Hey, that's a great explanation of what's going on, or the revitalization of Harrison Barnes. Do you have any answer for this super scorer Mo Harkless at the 4? This guy who is a splash brother from beyond the arc, and what's going on?
Absolutely not. Like, I have told people forever, from the day that they traded for Mo Harkless, I love Mo Harkless as a player. I think what Mo Harkless does, people don't respect. They don't pay attention. It's the whole, like baseball, chicks dig the long ball thing. Like, if you're not scoring in the NBA, everyone looks the other way. I remember Matt Harpering had this big thing about he knew he was coming into free agency, so he went out and averaged 20 points a game one year. And then the next year, he got this huge deal. He went right back to being the player that he was, because that's a player he should be. It's not who he shouldn't be, right? So I think of Mo Harkless that same way, but Mo Harkless is a really good cutter, and he's super long. And if you're not making him like take a bunch of threes, I think you're okay. I think the fact that Sabonis involves everyone really does start to make everyone feel good around the horn. Everyone's like, they're engaged, they're 100% focused and locked in. So Harkless is used to just being that guy on the defensive end. Now it's like, okay, I can do a lot of other things. And don't forget, the rebound numbers are crazy from both Harkless and Harrison Barnes. They kind of took turns. Even the first game, De'Aaron Fox has 8 boards, right? That is specifically because teams are so focused at stopping Sabonis and keeping him off the glass that the other guys are just feasting. And again, that's another, like, Sabonis only has 5 assists in the first game and 7 in the second, but the team has got like 32 assists and 29 assists.
Hmm.
All of these things are contagious. Rebounding is contagious. Passing is contagious. Even deflections are contagious. And so I think what we're seeing is sort of, it's new, it's fresh. They're also not playing like the cream of the crop. But like a couple of days ago, if they're walking into a game like tonight where, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, Ben Simmons are all out, we expect the Kings to lose because that's who they were. I don't think we expect anything. Yeah, I think they'll probably win. Would I place a bet on the Kings tonight? Yes, I would. I would.
Really?
I think that they're different. Where this is a veteran
It's a
team.
different James Ham right here.
No, it's a different veteran team that we're seeing with like smart players all over the place. So like, I'm not telling you to go like bet your house on this thing, but I felt they were going to beat Washington the whole time, especially even when they were down by 13. Gonna win. That's fine.
I felt good about that Washington game too. We'll see what happens tonight. Seth Curry's going to make his debut for the Brooklyn Nets tonight.
Watch out for Seth.
Are you concerned about Rashawn?
Well, concerned in what way? Because unfortunately, he went from being like a huge viable piece to the franchise to being a tertiary player. And I got to be honest, at this point, like Damian Jones is a better fit for this roster than Rashawn Holmes is. And part of it is we talked about it so many times, like the pairing of Rashawn Holmes and Tyrese Halliburton was so perfect. The lob guy. Well, they don't have a lob guy anymore. And so we're seeing a bunch of action that doesn't make any sense. And then when we see Sabonis come off the floor, it just drags down to that same like clunky, everyone doing the same exact thing. Again, the rotating around the perimeter, it doesn't really work for Rashawn unless you have a passer who can hit him. I'm concerned in that he doesn't fit, but I'm not concerned because I think he'll go right back to being who he was before. It just won't be with this team. It'll be somewhere else next season, at least my opinion. I think that at some point, he's going to find a new home, but he sure is a really nice, attractive asset to have going into the summer because you got a guy who's on a contract for another 3 years at like $36 million. Really, really solid contract for a player like that. And I don't think they're going to have any trouble moving him, whether they package it with their first-round pick to move up or move out or pick up another first-round pick. I think there's a lot of options here when it comes to Rashawn. And I feel for him because he didn't do anything wrong. The fact that he was injured and really has had a very poor season, there are so many contributing factors to that I'm not going to put a bunch of blame on him. But at this point, he's just not part of the plan. You have a center in Sabonis that, in the 80s would have played, 42 minutes a game, and there wouldn't be any minutes at all. So I think when he's up and rolling, you're looking at Sabonis as a 36-plus per game guy in Sacramento.
De'Aaron Fox, number 5. Since he's come back from his ankle injury to 2 weeks being out with ankle soreness, 27.3 points per game, 5.3 rebounds a night, 4.3 assists, shooting 49% from the field, 43 from beyond the arc. And here's the one that really gets me hyped, James. 87% from the free throw line. He's looking reinvigorated. He looks re-energized. Do you attribute that to the guys around him more, or is it a situation where mentally, when I say the guys around him, I mean strategically, like X's and O's wise, Sabonis fits what he tries to do on the court? Or is it just a mental approach of, hey, I've got some horses with me now. Now I'm free to do what I want. This short sample size, but this resurgence of De'Aaron Fox, what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I really did. Right when I saw the trade, thought if they keep Fox, that Sabonis will be the key to unlocking him. We're seeing that side pick and roll, which is just spectacular, where Fox goes over to the near the sidelines. They flick it over to him. He makes a break. Sabonis cuts. He either hits Sabonis or races to the key. that two-man game is only going to get better.
Mhm.
And I think the other thing that we need to look at is Gentry is going to need to figure out pretty quickly his rotations, because we're back to that point where it was with Halliburton and Fox, where if you have both of them off the court, you're going to get in some trouble. So I kind of like that Fox was allowed to take over in the fourth quarter against the Wizards and just really go for it. And then they were able to keep Sabonis on the bench until like the 6-minute mark. I also thought that gave Rashawn a little confidence, gave him some burn. I think he ended up with 6 points. He still didn't have a rebound, but he got up to 6 points.
Great.
And then just the way that the flow went with him, Fox wanted to take over mode, and then you put Sabonis back out there, and Sabonis is just clearing a lane for him the whole way. So, we've always talked about there's a couple of ways to clear space for De'Aaron Fox. Number one, you put a bunch of shooters around him, but number two, you put like a gigantic bumper in the middle of the key and let him run around the bumper. And that's what Sabonis is. He's just clearing out space left and right. So I'm excited to see where Fox goes from here. He is reinvigorated. He was reinvigorated the first game back. I think mentally he did take a break. I think physically he's about as close to 100% as you could get for being mid-season, just because he had all this time off. And so I really do think this is like premium moment for Fox to get a couple of games here, take another break, get a couple of more games, and then let's get this thing going. Let's sprint to the finish line. And, I think they got a shot.
I do too. I think they can get this done, man. If they, continue to play good basketball. But I mean, with them,
unfortunately, the Blazers and Spurs are on hot streaks right now.
Yeah, what's up with them? But I think if they get this done, record aside, final record aside, I think they would get it done playing good basketball, and I think it gives a completely different feel to getting the 10th seed as opposed to just kind of backing into it and getting it because there's 10 teams instead of 8 now.
Yeah, I think I wrote that somewhere along this weekend, that it no longer feels like you're backing in. If you go to play-in, I think number one, you actually have a shot. Like if you get to the play-in game, you have a shot to upset some of these guys and get into the actual playoffs. And I mean, I didn't think that at all before. I just thought before you're just like getting an 83rd game and you're killing yourself with your draft and you made a huge mistake. At this point, I'm not really concerned where they finish in the draft lottery. Like if you do somehow move up to the top 4, then you're going to be able to build so much faster. But I think there is so much value at this point to going for it. There was no reason to go for it before. Now you got at least 3 pieces that for a fact, maybe even 4, that you are positive will be here next year and that are the core of your team. And that's what you got to play as. Like, all right, let's build continuity. Let's build success. Let's build, some sort of momentum for next season.
So, and the reason that you think you go for it, it totally makes sense to go for it now, is because you're already in a better position next year.
Right.
Heck yeah. You're already in a position where I think you're at a position where bringing in a first-round draft pick is probably slimmer. Yeah. Like the chance of you actually drafting that position, no, I don't think so. The Kings have, they got some trade exceptions in all of these deals. On top of that, they got Rashawn Holmes that they can move. You got expiring contracts going into next season of guys, like Justin Holiday. You're going to have some other guys that are under contract that you can actually move. Alex Len, Mo Harkless. Now, can I piece together a deal this offseason, add my first-round pick? Can I go get the big third piece or the fourth piece to go along with Harrison Barnes, to go along with Sabonis, to go along with Fox? Because in all honesty, this has to be about next season and building a culture and a team around Sabonis so he signs in the summer after that. So not this summer, but the summer after, he's ready to jump on board with a massive extension. And so you got to build this summer and going into next season, because that is if if you're only going to have him for 2.5 years, then you really, really wasted a good young player. If he's going to, be here for 2 years and then have another 5 years on top of that, where you get him all the way through his prime, now you're cooking.
Yeah.
Yep. Monty seemed really eager to talk about like the future and picks and assets and all of that stuff on Saturday. He seemed like, almost like I think Monty's got a trade made. He's just waiting for the draft day to get here so he can execute it. Like he was talking with such eagerness about that on Saturday. It was like, oh, and I say that jokingly. I feel like he has a direction that he wants to go in his head. Whether he can execute it or not, we'll see. But I think he thinks like you, like may not use that draft pick.
Yeah.
At least you can see the light.
Draft a player.
Yeah. That's the devil. We can see the light now. We can see the path forward. And it's not so far away. I mean, we just watched the Kings go up against Karl Anthony Towns, and I'll tell you, Sabonis is a better player than Cat. I don't have any problem saying that. And so you have an all-star. He should be an all-star next year in the Western Conference, which is saying something. And that's with him fighting through all of these forwards that could come back. You have to do everything in your power to build around him right now.
Yeah. I just want to identify the big fish. I'm gonna be looking, guys. I'm identifying the big fish.
You're going fishing?
Summer. Oh yeah, I'm going fishing.
It's not Cam Reddish.
I'm glad you said it. Because I guarantee you everybody was thinking of it. Kenny's going to come in here. He's going to tweet. He's got an epiphany. And he's going to come in and go, I figured out a way. The Sacramento Kings could get Cam Reddish.
Yeah.
You would deliver it real slow and quiet.
Just talk to Tibbs. You don't want him. We get Cam Reddish for
Cam effing Reddish.
For Luke King.
With 250 and some jawbreakers, you probably could. Tom Thibodeau be like, here, you can have him. All right, we're done.